Good morning. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Today I'm going to be talking about Christ in the heart. Christmas is in a few days. Yesterday, many of us from around the world, particularly the spiritual community, shared a moment of silence in which the energy of love and healing was radiated throughout the world, bringing in peace, trying to eliminate suffering and pain through the energy of love, through the energy of healing. I found it to be a most powerful moment, and I'm sure many of you that participated did as well. Yesterday also launched the first of 7 days in recognition of the new group of world servers. This is a every 7-year event that we set aside those 7 days. And in our prayers, in our meditation, in our actions, in our thoughts, we show the spirit of gratitude to all those servers around the world that are truly in contact with hierarchy, responding to their vision, responding to their impulses of impression, and carrying forth in action all that they were inspired to do throughout the year. But those 7 days, every 7 years, the more of us that become aware of this particularly amazing, unique event, our job is to support them and someday to become one of them. This morning, I'm talking about Christ in the heart, which includes excerpts from a lecture given quite a few years ago, by Torquem Serdarian, which will remind us this week about the Christ within, the divine presence within the heart of individuals and within humanity as a whole. Christmas is a moment when, in the cave of our heart, Christ is expressing or manifesting himself. If, as spiritual students, we are really striving on the path of perfection, we gradually or eventually must reach that realization that in our heart there is a great presence. You can deceive people. You can even deceive yourself. But one thing you cannot deceive is your heart, because the divine presence is in your heart. What happens if we eventually bring that presence into us and make that presence control our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and yes, even our relationships? We will see that a transformation is happening. This transformation is happening in our life and in the life of all those with whom we are in relations. It happened just a few years ago to 2 young children in a family from Illinois, a state in the United States. The 8-year-old daughter became ill and was diagnosed with a life-threatening blood disease. A search went out to find a donor of blood compatible with her own. As she weakened, they looked and no donor could be found. Then it was discovered that her 6-year-old brother shared her rare blood type. The mother and their minister and doctor sat down with the boy to ask if he would be willing to donate his blood to save the life of his sister. Much to their surprise, he did not answer right away. He wanted some time to think about it. After a few days, he went to his mother and said, "Yes, I'll do it." The following day, the doctor brought both children to his clinic and placed them on cots next to each other. He wanted them to see how one was helping the other. First, he drew a half a pint of blood from the young boy's arm. Then he moved it over to his sister's cot and inserted the needle so her brother could see the effect. In a few minutes, color began to pour back into her cheeks. Then the boy motioned for the doctor to come over. He wanted to ask a question very quietly. He asked, "Will I start to die right away?" You see, when he had been asked to donate his blood to save the life of his sister, his 6-year-old mind understood the process literally. That's why he needed a few days to think about it. And then he simply gave what is in the heart of every human being to give when we are truly connected. We are told that our etheric heart has 12 petals. And when we receive that fire within us, the presence of Christ is within us. These petals slowly, slowly open. Each of these 12 petals has a quality which Torkim spoke at length about. I'm going to speak about what will happen to us if the 12 petals of our heart center opens. So what's going to happen to you if your heart center opens? The first is humility. The first one is that a tremendous humility will descend in your soul. When you come in contact with that flame, you are no longer living in vanity. You are no longer living in pride. You feel that you are really humble because that light, that presence, opens your horizon to such a distance, in such a wide way, that you feel like you are standing in front of the cosmos. I was listening to a CNN on Sirius XM on the way over here this morning in the car, and they were talking to journalists. I don't know who they are. They're whoever is running the program. And they said to journalists, what is the one thing you would like to see changed in the way journalists are presenting the news to people? And then they gave examples, and the first example was humility. I was so touched, I was shocked actually, to think about a journalist being humble. You know, it's an unusual idea. But they had the wits about them to think, and the inspiration to put that on the very first point of the list was humility. And it really stands like an echo to what we're saying here this morning. And let me repeat this. You feel that you are really humble because that light, that presence opens your horizon to such a distance and such a wide way that you are feeling like you are standing in front of the cosmos. Imagine if we had cosmic journalists. We need to be humble to have the realization that we are really just an atom in the universe and nothing else. If we have that light, that flame in our heart, we will start humbling ourselves. When we start humbling ourselves, we will feel now that we can grow, that we really can expand, and we can be something, somebody in the universe, cooperating with the forces and energies of the nature. That is the first thing that happens to us. If any man or woman says, my heart center is open, the first sign is humility. Are you humble? The second, love, compassion, and unity all forms one petal. Love, compassion, and unity. The second petal that is opening in our heart, love, compassion, and unity. It's very powerful. Separative ideas, hatred, and crime do not exist anymore when that petal is open. Separative ideas, hatred, and crime. What does exist is a tremendous amount of compassion and striving toward unity. Not striving to isolation, just the opposite of that, striving toward unity. Unity instead of separating. Unity instead of dividing. Unity instead of creating cleavages. Like my family is better than your family. My nation is better than your nation. And so forth. It would be so beautiful if every one of you became a messenger of unity and synthesis instead of becoming a messenger of separatism, cleavages, and divisions. Wherever you go, you unite people, you integrate families, and you integrate nations and humanity. We need these kinds of people, and we can only do these things if the flame of Christ is in our heart. That dynamic energy that makes us bloom and open and unfold. The third is purity. When that flame starts burning in our heart, it purifies our heart, our thoughts. We no longer think evil or dirty or polluted things about others, about ourselves, because the fire purifies us. What is happening? That fire that is growing within us begins to purify us. Unless we are purified, we cannot step on the path of perfection. When we are purifying our physical and emotional and our mental nature, especially our mental nature, we will feel that that energy is now charging our entire mechanism. The energy, this energy, is charging our soul, our mind. We are now radioactive. We are energetic. We are healthy. We are a joy for human beings. That is how that flame cleans. Number 4 is righteousness. Are you really thinking righteously for this person, for that person, for this or that event? Are you righteous or are you crooked in your thinking? If you are crooked in your thinking, that fourth petal is not open yet. And you are not going toward perfection, toward unfoldment. It means the lotus is not unfolding in you. I cannot help with what's going on, particularly in this country and Britain today. The statement that if you are not going toward unfoldment, if you are crooked in your thinking, the lotus is not unfolding in you. This is why we must be scrupulous, clear, without prejudice, without bias, and observe only through the virtues of that one we're going to put in as president in the next election. Not how loud they speak, not how Republican or Democratic they are, not whether they're a millionaire or a billionaire. I want to see their virtue. I want to see how many petals of their lotus are open. And that's how I'll make my decision. The fifth is joy. When this fifth petal is open, joy becomes part of the fabric or the substance behind all that we do. Do not be gloomy. Do not carry your problems like a bag. And whomever you meet, you open your bag and give it to them. I have received so many bags over the last few weeks. Sometimes I just want to take the items in that bag and just throw it back at them. But of course, that would not be the right thing to do. But I think as these items accumulate in the bag, let's call it the bag of gloominess, it's because our life has taken us in a direction away from the beauty of evolution, from the beauty of Shambhala, from the beauty of contact with the avatar of synthesis. And rather, we identify with the perils of living on this planet, of rejection, of pain, of suffering, all that comes as a result of vanity and pride and egotism. When we put aside all these items that make us gloomy, there will not be a vacuum. That vacuum will be filled by joy, by love, by compassion, by righteousness, and by beauty, and so many other elements that will make us truly become creative human beings. And in becoming creative human beings, we're going to transform society. We're going to bring in politicians that will give us the respect of government, the respect of law, the respect of principles. We want our politicians to be members of the new group of world servers. Those who have created a spirit, a soul that comes back from one life to another, to another, to another, to transform the consciousness of humanity. So don't be gloomy. Don't carry your problems like a bag and open your bag and give it to them. Don't do that. Leave your problems at home. You can talk about them with your teacher who loves you deeply and will then converse with your soul, with your higher self. Together, your teacher and your higher self will help you to unpack your bag of problems. But the problem is, one of the problems is, I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. I'm powerful. I'm independent. I'm free. I don't need anybody. And so what happens is our bag becomes fuller and fuller and fuller until it overflows, and all we can do is walk through those problems. I could change that word problem into a whole bunch of other words, that we're walking in our stuff. This is why you must be honest with your teacher. But if you are with people, bring joy. Do not load people with your baggage. Number 6 is beauty. The 6th petal, as it opens, makes you beautiful. When you give yourself to others in beauty, you will see that you are continuously in a stream of beauty. Do you know what beauty is? I think every teacher I've known and studied with say you don't know what beauty means. And then they give us these incredible descriptions or definition of beauty that just blows my mind. So in this case, Torkim is saying that beauty is a great, great constellation. And from that constellation emanates and radiates a tremendous amount of energy, which organizes. Now, this is what this constellation of beauty does. It organizes, it harmonizes, it makes us rhythmic, and it synchronizes. That is what beauty is. That energy is coming and touching, and because we have an instrument that will respond and assimilate and organize that energy, then our response is creating a beauty within us. We are becoming beautiful. The 7th petal is labor. You start working. Torkim wrote, we went to a temple. I said, my teacher, who are the advanced students and disciples in this temple? The teacher said, you will see them. I said, well, how will I recognize them? He said, whoever is out in the early morning with dirty clothes, working in the garden until midnight, washing and cleaning, they are the most advanced people. He wrote, the next day I saw some people sitting and meditating and reading the whole day. He said, they are cabbages. We can hear his voice in our head if you ever heard him yell with righteousness and love and joy. They are cabbages. You talk to them and they are not worth even 1 cent. You go to the garden. There's an 80-year-old man there who is growing potatoes and tomatoes. He said, what do you want, my son? Can I talk with you for a minute? Yes. In 10 minutes, he gives me wisdom. Wow. The other men were artificial. They were made up. They are just like engineered chairs or tables. They are escaping in their life. The other man is laboring. At 5 o'clock, he is thinking, if I get up at 5 o'clock and water, this is in the morning, if I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and water the potatoes and the tomatoes, it will bring a nice crop and everybody will be happy. but the others are snoring, and they are thinking that they are advanced disciples. Advanced disciples, advanced human beings, are those beings that demonstrate labor without expectation. The 8th petal is when the flame of your heart starts growing and burning the pollution in your being, and you slowly turn heroic. You do not behave like snakes or lizards. You become heroic. You can demonstrate it with your relationships that you are a hero, fearless, sacrificial, striving, and decisive. Torkin was in Argentina walking on the street one day. He said there were maybe 300 girls playing rock and roll music in their ears. He said, the destruction of this nation came. Rock and roll, do you know what it does? It really loosens the screws of your mind and eventually kills it. How can we make these people understand? They say it is fantastic. Yes, but wait another 5 years and you will see what is happening. This is what we are talking about. Instead of being an artificial, mechanical somebody, can you, young girls, young men, think about a heroic life so that eventually when you are 21, 25, 40, 50, 70, or 80, they will say, this woman is a masterpiece. She became something. Or she left us some fertilizer like rotten potatoes. Nothing else. Number 9 is meditation. When that flame, that 9th petal, that flame starts opening within us, we suddenly feel that we must have a time of meditation. A girl 16 years old wrote to me. She wrote, Torkim, I feel I must do meditation. I became so happy, he said. One day, I went to my teacher and said, you know, St. Paul wrote a letter and said, I am highly delighted that you want to turn your life into righteousness. Why is he so delighted that he is a young boy? Well, my teacher said, if a young boy, a young girl, comes from darkness into light, he has so many years to bloom and express his view. So that's the 9th petal. The 10th petal is study. As the 10th petal unfolds, you want to study. Seriously study. He said, I'm not suggesting that you sit and become a cabbage of religious books. No, he says, learn science, law, philosophy, psychology, religion, and different things. You learn so that your learning is used for the upliftment of humanity. As you expand your consciousness towards study and meditation, you become more than what you were. That is what we mean. And number 11, service. You start serving great ideas. Serving great ideas. What are the ideas? You can say, I'm going to spread the idea of peace all over the world. I'm going to spread the idea of beauty and cooperation, understanding and harmony. Do we see people doing these things? Absolutely. But it doesn't hit CNN or MSNBC or Fox. We need to transform our media so we can hear people speak to us, spreading the idea of peace all over the world. To speak about the idea of beauty and cooperation, of understanding and harmony and not division, and opinion and prejudice. These are great ideas. When we start serving great ideas, we will be great with the ideas. Two of my co-workers, one from Australia and one from the US, were inspired to start up the Global 1 Minute of Silence as an initiative within the One World. It was observed yesterday at 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 9 o'clock Greenwich Time. It had the support of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, his full support. One of our co-workers took this idea to him, and he said, "It is wonderful when we realize we are all connected and come together in this way." He said, one people, one humanity. And do you know how antagonistic people hear that? One people, one humanity? And what they call people like us, how they name us? Shame on them. In Fiery World 3, it says, "The unification of the worlds is the highest creativeness for Agni Yoga." The Global Silent Minute offered an opportunity to further anchor the oneness of the fiery, subtle, and manifested world. One people, one humanity, one world. Here is a solemn poetic story of peace by Pax Christi. Pax Christi, P-A-X Christi, which means Latin, it is Latin for the peace of Christ, was established in France in 1945. As a faith-based network, Pax Christi International seeks and has since 1945 to transform a world shaken by violence, terrorism, deepening inequalities, and global insecurity. The Pax Christi International website declares its mission is to transform a world shaken by violence, terrorism, deepening inequalities, and global insecurity. And let me read this poetic story. It's from their website. In the gospel story, where the apostles get trapped in that sudden and wild storm on the Sea of Galilee, we find a lesson for today's peacemakers. When the waves first rose and the boat began to rock, the apostles worked hard and with hope in order to survive the storm raging around them. But then they lost heart and allowed the storm outside to come inside. It's easy to imagine the apostles as frantic, disconnected, out of control. In their desperation, they waken a peaceful Jesus who questions their faith and calms the storm by projecting his inner stillness, his inner harmony, his inner peace. Sometimes we peacemakers are more like the apostles. We have allowed the war around us to become part of us. Too often we only worsen the situation by projecting our fear and guilt and despair. What we want to do is to become like Christ, to have that still center that nothing can disturb, In that way, we are true peacemakers, persons who project peace wherever we go. And number 12, the 12th petal is striving toward perfection. You will say, my face is good, my business is good, my money is good, but down to the core of my being, I am nothing. Let me strive to be something, somebody. If the way of your speech is not good, then change it. If the way of your mannerisms is not good, then change it. Be perfect. Eventually, come to your center. Be together and find where your focus is. These are 12 petals, and we have a great wish today. What is that wish? Let the flame of your hearts bloom and grow so that your light becomes a blessing in the world. That is what Christmas is for. When you receive the Christ within your heart, it will change you. It will really change you. If you are not changing, then strive, and you will see that you will change. So Merry Christmas to us all.